Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Clifton Johnson. I'm here with the Empower Series YouTube Live podcast. And I want to thank our sponsoring organizations, which is not only AE Media Group, who give us these in-kind donations and these resources to bring this live YouTube interview to you. I'm just laughing. But also, I want to gratefully thank Comerica Bank for their longtime support, as well as your support that you give to us online and through text messaging. So if you want to give us some support, you can go to our website, which is www.empowerseries.com, and click on the donate button to the top left-hand corner. You can also text, give, or donate to 214-225-6337. And I am happy to introduce you to our guest today. Our guest is Kim Muench, and she is the founder of an organization called Real Life Parent Guide. And we were talking about just parenting. So if you're a parent out there or have a relationship with a parent, you will benefit greatly from Kim. She has a coaching organization, and she does a lot of meetup groups with moms and other parents to really help them facilitate the process of parenting and make it simpler, not just for us, but also for our adolescent children. So, Kim, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Clifton. It's great to be here with you.
Now, we are friends. We know each other from outside of this, but I really am glad that you have that you have agreed to come to the Empower Series show and talk about what you do, because you're doing a lot of great things. I could have benefited from your resources and your knowledge when I was raising my 32-year-old and my 19-year-old. They're probably watching now thinking, yeah, Dad, you were kind of controlling, you know. I was just telling Kim that I didn't give my daughter the experience of love. I really loved her, but just because I didn't know, I was trying to, force some things that I thought was wise to her. I told her that if you can draw a cartoon character strip of me holding her head in a grip and have a syringe with wisdom, I was trying to squeeze it in, but the water was the medicine was just shooting out. That's
many parents have that.
That's probably not the way to do it, right?
No, it's not. But I don't sit here expecting to have every right answer for every parent either. I can just tell you from my experience and from my knowledge that it's a practice to not want to control your children, but to rather parent with them instead of over them.
So the greater the tendency for us to want to give advice or control, we probably need to pause and not do that.
Yes, pause. Pausing is perfect. Pause and respond rather than react. Controlling comes from, wanting to immediately reacting. And I think that conscious parenting or intentional parenting, which is what I coach parents on, is all about practicing pausing and reflecting on what's really going on before you go ahead and correct the child that you're, whatever the situation that you're in.
So I like the term you said, conscious parenting or intentional parenting. A guest, a mutual friend of ours, Christine Crockett-Smith, was here before, and she said that she realized that she's not really raising kids. She's raising adults. And so if you have that perspective, you're looking at it a little bit differently. And I know that as a parent, we can all remember a time where we had our last nerve pinched and we were responding not in the most healthy or effective way. But you have a process, though, or a guide that can help parents be, I like the term peaceful parenting starts here.
Well, it starts within the parent, right? And when I work with parents, one of the first things we do is we set some goals. That's what coaching is really all about. That makes it different than counseling. It's what are the goals and how do we get there? So it's a plan of action for parenting. And then it's about looking back at your own childhood to understand where your children's behavior now is triggering you, because our kids trigger us like no one else.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's we don't dwell so much on the past as we do to look at and acknowledge, because many a times when a parent is feeling disrespected, it's deeper than that. It's about something that they maybe didn't feel heard as a child by their own parents, and so therefore that child's behavior is kicking up in them that idea of not being heard.
Well, I'll tell you, my daughter would tell you that a lot of our conversations were, I didn't think she was respecting me. So you're hitting on a nerve even with me. But before we even get to there and the message that you have Now, I want to know a little bit more about you and why is this such a calling for you?
Well, it is a calling for me because in May of 2008, I had a major parenting wake-up call, and that was my oldest son, who was living in our home state of Wisconsin, called me one day to say that he had spent the day recovering from an alcohol binge, and it wasn't the first time. Now, there were signs prior to this, but I was, like many parents, in denial about what was going on with my son. And him, and us being in Texas and him being in, 1,200 miles away made it easy for these things to develop because I wasn't right there. That's not an excuse because there were signs. However, he wanted help. And in my desire to help him, I also wanted to be a better parent. I thought it was time wasted for me to think, why is this happening to me? Why is it, I wanted to really look at the way I was parenting, but also the way that I had been parented and what didn't work and what I was bringing into the relationship with not only my oldest son, but my 4 other kids at the time. So it sent me on a journey of really deciphering what my parents did in terms of discipline, in terms of our relationship that did work, what didn't work, and how to make conscious choices with my own children. And I decided that I wanted to parent with my kids rather than over them. I really feel like we've got to shift the way that we're raising our kids because I think that their behavior, kids' behavior, is not only I think it's influenced by social media and things in our culture. However, I also think that they're coming into the world to show us that we need to evolve the way that we're parenting them.
Okay, so give me a snapshot. So at the time you had this experience, what were the ages of your children?
So Nick was 20, and then Alan Michael was 15, and Brigham was... he was young. Right. Yeah. And my youngest 2 were like 3 and 5.
Okay.
So they really had nothing. They really did not know what was going on.
You had a pretty big spread then.
But yeah.
Right.
Still do. Yeah.
All right. It's not getting shorter, right? So with that being said, when you were experiencing this event, prior to that happening, what was your mindset? Were you aware that there were some challenges, or did you feel like you were parenting right or the best you could?
When Nick was in high school, I would have friends that would say, I'm going to come to you when I've got a teenager because you've got such a great relationship with Nick. Mm-hmm. And we really did. The difference, I think, in looking back with Nick is that, so I had him when I was 18 years old, and he went between 2 very different households. Okay. And I had a difficult time getting along with his dad. So while Nick and I had a great rapport, and he would come and talk to me about all sorts of things during high school. He also had a lot going on that he didn't want to share with me. Mm-hmm. So I think that, complicated the issue.
Yeah. And so looking back, you can look at, what was happening during his formative years and how that's manifested itself today, or at that time when he was 20. But then from that, you went on the journey to seeing how you can parent better.
Yes.
Is that it?
Yes. It started with, so we had a couple of years of very difficult times. Like he really spiraled. Lots of things happened before he got on a path of, long-term sobriety, and he's more than 9 years sober at this point. Okay. But those couple of years, really caused me to think, your child's in this situation. I didn't have a friend or anyone that I knew that had ever been in the situation. So it caused me to really look online and read books and try and educate myself on addiction and whatnot. I think that the family weekend that we went to when he was inpatient was really, really helpful to me to learn. And it made me want to help teenagers. So I went back to school to pursue an LCDC license to help teens in addiction. And along the route, I really decided parents were what I wanted to focus on, proactively helping parents. Not that every child that takes a drink at 15 is going to land, and become an alcoholic by 20. Mm-hmm. But if we could have a better relationship during the teen years with our kids, lots of parents are white knuckling it through these years just to try and get their kid to college or whatever the next step is for their child. And this is really such a fantastic time for our kids. They're growing, they're learning, their brains are changing, and we should make the most of that time and not be, just thinking that we have all the answers. I also believe that our children come into the world with their own agenda and evolution, and that we're there to support them, and it's a gift to us to support them. Doesn't mean they don't have rules and we don't have structure. It just means we've got to allow them to make choices in their lives and fail at things in their lives sometimes in order to figure out what their path is.
Okay, so we're going to talk about some advice you have for us from a guiding perspective to have a better relationship with our adolescents or our high school students. But if you have kids that are past that, they're grown or older, and you're still challenging, do you help parents with those?
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's help
it's never
for
too
us.
late.
Right, okay.
It's never too early. I love working with parents of kids in middle school, high school, and young adult because that's where my kids are. But, surely it's never too early to start working on this, and it's never too late.
Okay, and you have a meetup group. Your meetup group is for moms.
I do.
Tell me about
It's
that.
called Moms Empowering Moms, DFW.
Okay.
And we meet the third Monday night of the month in Flower Mound from 7 to 8:30. And it's where we really talk. We get very real about what's going on with our teenagers. And I think one of the special things about it is as we grow, we're going to have collaboration circles. So we're not just coming to blow steam and vent. That's part of it. And you can't coach a room full of people through their problems because there's a lot of fairly big problems out there. But we break into smaller groups and they break into groups of 3, and they have the guidance and thoughts of 2 other women, right?
Okay.
And what I've found is that it's not so much about me knowing all the answers as it is getting people together to authentically talk about parenting teenagers. And there's a lot of resources that I don't have that other moms do. It's amazing. Like it's moms empowering moms.
Yeah. And so what you've done, though, to give you credibility is you not only had the personal experience of your son, but you also, you journaled through that whole process. You went to school and got a degree, and you put a lot of work in this field.
And I continue to educate myself because it's because it's ever changing, right? There's so much that we've learned about the adolescent brain over the last 20 years. And I think parents don't have any idea. I also think one of the challenges is that we see these young adult looking and their brains aren't fully developed. And they are, even if 90% of the time your kid has a great head on his shoulders and makes, fantastic choices, there's going to be that time that either he's with his peers or whatever, that he makes, a choice that you wish he hadn't made. But this is how we learn. When I look back at my own raising, where I learned the most was when I really got myself into trouble,
And that's what we want to avoid for our kids.
Right. But that's where you build resilience and grit. And that's where your character comes from is having to deal with these, challenges that you wish your kid wouldn't, be in.
So let's do this then, because if you think about it, whether it's sports or whether it's our field of practice, a trade or whatever, we spend hours of practice time. We spend hours of training and studying before we get into a field that earns us a living or gives us tremendous pleasure that we succeed in. But when it comes to getting to being married and then having kids, we just wing it.
You're right.
So I think it's critically important for those parents now who are going through some challenges, and we all go through challenges, and we all want to have a better relationship with our kids, to really glean from the resources and the knowledge that you have. So what would you share with us if, I know you can work on me if you want, but if you look at a typical parent that's going through some challenges, what would your advice to them be as they start working on themselves?
Well, my advice would be to give yourself some grace, to have patience with yourself. Conscious parenting is a practice. It is not, just because I've been studying this and working at living this with my own children for the last decade doesn't mean that I don't have days when I, sometimes snap. But what I do know is it's so important to apologize to our kids when we need to. And that vulnerability is really a gift to them. It is not a weakness.
Okay.
For our children to know that we are human and that we make mistakes and that sometimes we say things that we shouldn't. But then the key is you have to, apologizing, then your behavior needs to change. You cannot expect your kids to do any differently than you, quite frankly.
But what if but we're imperfect, right? So one of the things is that as a parent, we always say, look, I'm a hypocrite. You need to do what I say, not what I do. I mean, if we're real, parenting is hypocrisy now. Like, there's no way. Like, you're not old enough to do what I do yet. That's real talk, though. If you really, I don't know if parents are ready to say, look, look at the person in the mirror to change. If I want my kids to start behaving better, I need to look at how I'm behaving and how my kids' behavior is a reflection of me. That's some deep stuff.
Oh, yeah, it is. And I'm not saying that it's easy to accept that. I'm just saying that when we cannot expect our children to behave in a way that we're not behaving, right? So if you're yelling, if you're, constantly in control and whatever, what do you think your child is going to want to do? The same, and you're going to be in this power struggle all the time, right? Our kids don't want to be lectured to, but I think, let me just back up and say, I think that our biggest defense against things like bullying, social media, addictions, is to develop relationships with our kids where they're invested and they still care about what we think. Because the second that we're lecturing and we're coming from a place of wanting to control them and that we have all the answers, is that when they turn away and, turn to the deaf ear.
Okay. So is there any hope for parents that are not willing to let go of all of that? Or maybe there's in steps, because you don't change immediately.
That's right, you don't.
And as a parent, granted, all of that sounds perfectly great in theory and for a few people to practice. But if, as a parent, if you've got some kids who are doing some things that are really not in their best interest,
yes,
and you kind of are impatient, you don't want them to try to. I mean, you can obviously say, here's my advice. I'm trying to guide you not to do these things. But if it's really, how do you help a parent that's not willing to let go of that? Look, at the end of the line, you do what I say because I'm a parent. To
be honest with you, I can't. I'm in the business of helping parents who are interested in looking within themselves to create a healthier relationship with their child.
Cool. So what you will say to that parent who's not willing to let go is, okay, how's that working for you? When it stopped working for you, or when you feel like it's not working for you, then come see me.
Mm-hmm. Right? And a lot of times their kids' behavior and response shows them that that's not, they're butting heads. Mm-hmm. Well, clearly whatever it is that you're doing isn't working, right? And your child is showing you through their behavior, through their actions, through their words, that they're not on board with you.
So it's like a sign of insanity, right? You keep doing the same thing over and over again, but you're not getting the results. So you just keep doing it, and you got to do something different.
Well, and we have to realize, too, that we're parenting for the long haul. Our children mm-hmm. are going to become adults, and it's like, what kind of relationship do you want to have with your adult child one day?
Well, I know in a counseling session, that's one of the things that the counselor told me. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So Clifton, what kind of relationship do you want to have with your daughter? Mm-hmm. And with my controlling ways, she said, my daughter will laugh if she's watching this, what she'll say. Dad, you can't even acknowledge that you are controlling. Say, okay, I could be controlling.
Maybe.
Maybe, right? But to the point, she said, anytime I would do things or I would try to help my daughter, I'm showing that I'm not trusting that she can figure it out on her own.
Yes. When you take on so much, when you want to control everything and not give her any choices or, an ability to make a mistake, mm-hmm. to take the wrong path so that she can learn to right herself.
Well, so a lot of times when parents come to you, I can just imagine that they're coming to you because they feel like their child is not behaving well. But then you switch it around and say, okay, we got to work on you first.
That's right. When parents come to me and say, just tell me how in 3 steps I can get my kid to listen, mm-hmm. or I can get my kid to do what, I say, that's not how I work. I'm not here to tell you the 3-step quick option. And that's the culture we live in. Pop a pill, mm-hmm. give me the 3-step way, and the work is within the parent.
I got you on that. Well, my daughter, God bless her, she gave me a book once that said, "Hey, Dad, I want you to read this book." It was called The Lost Art of Listening. And then
Hint, hint.
And then she blocked me. She said, "And don't talk to me until you finish reading the book." But that book made the same point that you made is if you really want people to listen, it starts with you listening.
Yes.
And if you feel like someone's not listening to you, then give that gift of listening. And people don't do that a lot. And as a parent, we tend that we have the answer, or we'll listen to say, okay, this is the solution, when in reality, listening is a selfless act, if that's right, where it's not about getting our point across. It's not about doing anything ourselves, but it's truly giving that person the experience of being heard and how that can start.
It's amazing when we allow our children to be heard, when they felt and heard, they will make better choices for themselves because they're being validated. Now, again, I want to delineate. This does not mean child makes all the rules in the house and whatnot. I think as kids get older, the gift we can give them is to give as many choices as we can and have few non-negotiables in place. Like there's certain non-negotiables at our house.
Right.
But and you as a parent, you have to decide that. And that's about the other thing that I do is work with parents on what are your values? Rarely do we spend time really trying to figure out, we think we're living out our values, but are we? And our kids are the first ones that are going to raise the BS flag when we're not.
They'll call us out. You're right. So one process is, as a parent, do we really go through the process at our jobs? We go through a value exercise probably. But in our families, do we go through a value exercise to know what are my values if I'm a single parent? What are our values if we are in a couple? And what are our family values? So you have a process where people identify their values.
Yes.
Okay.
So that's one of the units that I work with parents on, is figuring out what are my values and then creating boundaries, because values and boundaries go together.
Okay. So it's really, it starts with the introspective, where am I coming from? How are my past experiences really impacting the way I interpret things happening to me now? Pause, don't just react, and then get a good grounding of where am I coming from? What are the things that I value? What are the rules and the non-negotiables in my house? And then at what point do you bring the children into this process of the values?
Well, I think that you establish what your personal values are and your couple values are, if that's the case. And then I think that you sit down with your kids. I think like, I'll give you an example. People say, do you have a contract for your child's behavior? Do you have any set contract for your kids' social media behavior or whatever? I think you're gonna get much more cooperation with your children if you involve them in the process of that. That doesn't mean you don't have first a conversation with your co-parent on the situation, but then to sit down and work through. Part of the problem is that we're not taking the time. We're so stinking busy that we don't take the time to connect with our kids and have conversation.
Yeah, I know that I have a best friend in college, Vincent. He told me he has 3 beautiful children. Their youngest one, he was telling me, Clifton, I finally get it. Our goal as parents is to provide as much security and certainty for our kids. And when you do that, then you are looking at how do you create a home environment that is secure, that is not unstable. That's clear on values, that, your behaviors are in alignment with those values. And then you, like you said, you're having a conversation with your children in a way to where you can talk through difficult issues and things of that nature.
Absolutely. That's absolutely the best defense against all of the other outside influences and messages that our kids get.
So in your process, so when Nick was 20 and you were going through what you were going through, you went on this journey of introspectively looking at yourself, how you were parenting, going to school. How long of that process, how long did you go through that journey before you felt like, okay, now let me take this and offer it to other people? What I've learned.
So I went back to school and finished a degree in psychology, started on my 4,000 internship hours to become an LCDC in the state of Texas. I passed the exam for that. And as I was going through the 4,000 hours is when I decided this is really this is not where I want to be and could be most effective. About that time, my daughter, my youngest, was in 3rd grade, and she was going through a great deal of anxiety. And I decided I needed to focus even more at home than getting these internship hours done. And during that time, I saw, through Facebook, an ad for a parent coaching program called the Jai Institute for Parenting, and it's based in Los Angeles. And I thought, I'm going to investigate this, and that's what I ended up doing, was going through the certification program for that.
Okay.
But I continue to, really read, educate myself on this and everything that I'm reading. I mean, it's really interesting, just because when I first started looking at my own journey and studying it, it's really, really coming more and more prevalent. Mindfulness, being conscious within your own self, so that you can bring when you're emotionally connected to yourself, then you're more readily emotionally available to your children. Mm-hmm. When we've got so much stuff going on and we're so busy and we're just bogged down with stuff, we can be in the same room. I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced that, where you're in the same room with someone, but they're on their phone. Mm-hmm. You're taking a walk with someone, they're on their phone and scrolling through Facebook, and you're like, hello.
Right. You're absolutely right. So with parents, going back to working on ourselves first,
yes,
to improve the relationship with our children, that process is it's not a quick process.
It's not.
Do you recommend that parents journal?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that part of? Is it a requirement, or do you just recommend?
I do meditate. Well, listen, I can't make any parent. They're gonna, if they invest in working with me and I make the suggestion, you would think that they would necessarily do, but I can tell you, I've worked with parents who I suggest doing meditation. I start my day with 5 minutes, 10 minutes of meditation every morning. I set an intention for the day, and I'm just quiet the first few minutes of the day. I realize that, some people don't agree with that, or they think it's woo-woo or whatever. Right. But I strongly suggest to, and we do a lot of journaling through the program that I work with parents on. Mm-hmm. They bring it to me. We read through it. We, process through it.
Okay. So that is part of the process, and, they choose to do it or not, right?
Right.
You can give them advice. All right, cool. One of the things I want to talk about is anxiety, because that's a big part of it. And I deal with, I have family members who have a high level of anxiety. And one of the things that I've been told when people are going through an anxiety attack, how best to respond. Mm-hmm. So my typical way of responding is calm down. It's not what you need to do. But so how do you deal with that as a parent? How should you help a child who is dealing with a lot of anxiety?
That's very, very prevalent in my life. Like I said, my daughter in 3rd grade started having anxiety, and she still deals with it on and off to this day. And I think she may, we all have some level of anxiety,
for the rest
right?
of our lives, right?
Right. I mean, it is what it is. It's just, how do we keep it contained?
And how do we remain functional?
Okay. So with my daughter, example, she will text me, Mom. And if I'm away from my phone, I might come back and the phone has 50 Mom. If she gets to Mama, I know that she's really, really in panic mode, and she's in a classroom, and she's, when I do get to her, what's up? Me being grounded, me being calm is the best help for her, whether we're together in the situation, like physically together, or she's at school. Okay. And eventually, I don't feed into her anxiety, because when she initially was very anxious in 3rd grade, I think my anxiety, I was freaked out. I can't get her to school, all this, and that just fed her, it was just like this endless loop, and just drove,
So stay calm, right?
Yeah.
That's one thing, right?
And that comes from, again, being grounded in your own emotional life.
Okay.
And you brought up meditation, and that's something that I have to attribute is a lot of how I stay calm.
So do you think meditation is something that is good for people with anxiety?
Absolutely. Oh, yeah. I should have said that. So my daughter has an app on her phone, and she meditates every morning.
Okay.
And I may have suggested it to her, but she has taken it on herself. It's not like something I nag her about. Don't forget to, it's not one of those put your shoes on and meditate, before you go to school. She has found it's been helpful to her. So she does that. She just naturally every morning, she goes back up to her bed, sits on her bed for 10 minutes and does meditation.
So how do you deal with people, like what about self-medication? Not to talk specifically about the type of medication, but you can go to the doctor and they give you prescribed medicine, but then those are sometimes I know people who've taken them, they don't like the way those medicines make them feel.
It's a Band-Aid.
Right.
You're not fixing the true essence of whatever the problem is. If it's what's in that anxiety, what's going on for you in that, anxiety is usually a lot of uncertainty about either a particular situation or your future tripping. I call that, there's
Okay.
there's a lot of parents I work with
tripping.
that are future tripping, right? They, what if this, then my kid told me this, and what if this, and all these things.
I like that, future tripping. That's
It's like, stay here.
Yeah.
Just stay here. None of that's happened yet or may never happen.
Well, do you feel like there's a true chemical misbalance that's
Possibly,
happening?
yes,
Or
absolutely.
Or is it always triggered by thought?
I think thought is a contributor, but there's no question in my mind that there are times when medication is absolutely necessary.
Okay.
So I'm not advocating for let's get rid of, medication. I'm just saying that trying these other things and practicing them if medication is necessary, can really help that situation, especially when it's your child.
So tell me about without using names for sure, but has there been like a really most difficult case where the parent followed your rules and was working on themselves, stayed grounded, but for some reason the child just kept, behaving in a way that was just not acceptable, pushing the boundaries? And because I remember I had a friend at work who had some really challenges with their daughter, running away, getting involved in some, in bad relationships. And from my perception, I didn't feel like as a parent she did things wrong. Or she was doing the best she can. But sometimes children just make decisions that are poor decisions.
That's right. They do. They do. We love our kids for the most part, right? You can say 99.9% of parents love their kids, and they're
like
whatever
they're
they're doing is with the best of intentions.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely, with that, this is where we come from as parents. But our kids are going to make choices that we don't want them to make at times. And again, I go back to saying that this is where they build character, and the natural consequences of the things that the choices that our kids make. The best thing that we can do is to allow those natural consequences to happen.
Wow. That's hard.
I know. I get it. From my own experience with my son, I stepped in because he was self-harming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I very quickly understood how little control I had to shift his path. And he had to go through some things that I never would have wanted for him. And he's come out, sometimes I can't say that for all kids, right? Some kids, they overdose. They don't get that opportunity.
Right.
But there was a time during which I went to sleep. I went to sleep with tears lots of nights, right? Wondering what was going to happen with my son. But one morning I woke up and I thought, I don't know why he's here. I don't know what his journey is. I don't know what his, what he's supposed to learn along this. I'm just here to love and support him at that, at the level that I can.
So how's he doing now?
Well.
He's doing good.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Well, last Friday I had my brother on the show, and my big brother, and he, in our raising, took a path that was different than mine and my sister, where he was homeless from 1988 to 1994. And he shared about his choices and his decision to start drinking, how that drinking, like you said, doesn't affect everybody, but for him, he just didn't stop, and he went on to heavier drinking, drugs, and it ended up where he was homeless. And now he's doing fine. He has 2 kids that are in college, and he's very involved with this Narcotics Anonymous and his church and his food pantry. But what he was saying, though, is, or what I see from that is, when people go through these challenges that no one who loves them want them to go through, we don't see the reason. But I see now for my brother, he's able to really reach and touch people, given his set of experiences that he couldn't reach and touch if he didn't go through that.
Yes.
So it goes back to where every step of the journey is of value, even the ones that we don't like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so how do we compassionately, the Dalai Lama said, compassionately observe people's suffering, because there's purpose for that.
Absolutely, there is, and we're none of us get through this journey without some challenges and some, you know, and it's one of the hardest things ever to watch your child go through something difficult and know that you cannot do anything about it and you have zero control over it.
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking about some decisions that, you know, my kids are making and how I don't want them to scrape their knee. I don't want them to go through that. But to your point, we have to take a back seat, because the minute we try to affect that, then it's like helping what is it, the little pigeon come out of the shell, their egg. You know, we're helping them come out, but they're not building strength in their wings to fly.
For sure.
So we can say that. So intellectually we get it, but applying it is so difficult.
It is.
Do you have an easy pill answer to that?
No, I don't. Thanks for the wink. No, I don't. There rarely is there anything easy about parenting. That's why I think there's a value in parents talking honestly with one another. I think that we all get very busy, and especially during adolescence, parents begin to feel like they're the only ones going through things, which is not the case. And that we need to take the time. We're so busy getting our kid to band and football or college prep courses or whatever it is that we're this competition that we're constantly in to try and make our kids be, whatever it is that
we envision them being, right?
We don't take the time for ourselves, and we rarely take the time to talk honestly with other parents. And there's so much value in that. I know that every time we have Moms Empowering Moms, the moms that come leave feeling like, why don't I always come? Mm-hmm. Like, why don't I always just come and, connect with other parents? It's super important. When our kids are little, we go through, sometimes we'll go through birth classes or baby classes or whatever, and then your kids have play dates and you're talking to the other moms, and the moms, we swap notes on who's not eating what or who's the biter or whatever. There's camaraderie in parenting. Mm-hmm. But as our kids get into middle school and high school, it becomes competitive and there is no camaraderie. And that's what we're really needing, a camaraderie among parents.
So first thing, if someone wants to get involved and join the
Moms Empowering Moms.
Moms Empowering Moms. I like empower. Moms Empowering Moms meetup group.
Yes.
How do they find that?
They just go on meetup.com and type in Moms Empowering Moms DFW, and they'll get all the information there.
All right. So I know moms, usually when you go to clubs, they have ladies' night. So ladies get in free and stuff like that. But you don't see men's night. So you got this Moms Empowering Moms. What about, so do you, as your service provider, do you provide services to husbands as well?
I personally coach them.
Okay.
But Moms Empowering, and I would never turn a dad away. If a dad shows up at Moms Empowering Moms, that would be fantastic.
Well, you know why they have ladies' night? Because wherever women are, men will show up.
It's Moms Empowering Moms because moms are typically the ones that will be first to open up about challenges that they're having. And the moms are oftentimes in the family the emotional barometer, right? Yeah. So if mom's in flow and in good state of being and whatever, usually that ripples effect into, other people. And actually one dad said to me once, how come you don't have dads empowering dads? I'm like, you're a dad. You could, I guess, I'm a parent coach, but this is really about moms supporting other moms more than it is me necessarily coaching. Do I do some of that? Yes. But this really is about moms connecting with moms. So a dad could absolutely do Dads Empowering Dads or dads, whatever.
So if you're out there thinking, man, they need to have a meetup group, man, what is it? Dads Empowering Dads.
Yeah.
Then that's an idea that you have. Put that idea in action.
Yeah. Because
there's some dads out there that can use some empowering.
Absolutely. And you have to be consistent with it because it's taken a while for it to, and we're not nearly as big as I think we could be. Mm-hmm. However, it takes consistency and desire and showing up. I'm showing up there the third Monday of the month or the fourth Monday of the month, depending on what, whether there's one person that I'm showing up. I'm showing up, and I have the space available, and I'm available.
Okay, now you putting that idea on me, right? So I'm thinking,
It's a fantastic idea. You should
wow,
do
the
it.
Empower series, huh? Yeah, for dads. And really, it's, you know, in my mind, I'm really thinking about how do we, from a father perspective, how do we give our children the experience of love? And it's not from the standpoint to where I have all of the answers. I'm still working with my daughter now. We have a very open communication. A lot of people are saying that, man, how do you get your daughter to talk to you and be open about all those things? And I'm glad, but she, you got to be careful what you ask for.
Mm-hmm.
She'll really tell you.
Yeah.
And so I love that about her strength and her openness and directness. I wonder where she gets that from. But the point is, it's not really helping from a standpoint of I have all of the answers, but I think collectively we can make a movement to where we're, as fathers, we're present for our children, and we're giving them the experience of love, because that's so critical, especially with our daughters. That's going to really impact the way they get into adult relationships.
Absolutely. So important. The father-daughter connection is just, I know in looking back, I haven't always had the greatest relationship with my own dad,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that my dad has always done the best he could with what he knew. But can you imagine if guys, if dads got together and they talked through things? It's a matter of making a choice to stop rolling it around in here and actually, letting it come out of your mouth and being vulnerable. I think that dads,
Okay.
Men in general have a harder time being vulnerable, I think.
Yeah, okay. So you got me. Let me put that on my list.
There you go. Dad's
my
empowering.
bad here, excuse me.
Yeah. Dad's empowering dads. DFW.
You think I'm playing, right?
No, I think you will do it.
Yes, yeah, I will.
If not you, someone. I think it would be fantastic.
We're putting it out there. Putting it out there in the universe, right? So a couple of things then. If someone wants to work with you, let's say there's a parent out there that's struggling right now.
And they're willing to work on themselves, right?
Yeah. Well, whether it's a mom or whether it's a dad,
Yep.
They're looking for resources, and maybe they just don't know. So they may go to a bookstore or the library and they're reading up on books. What advice would you give them to guide them on their journey to finding a solution? So one is definitely going to meet with you. So there's a website that you have. Mm-hmm. So what's your website?
reallifeparentguide.com.
Okay, so
reallifeparentguide.com.
Okay, so even because I looked at your website, and you also have a link with resources too.
Yes.
So go to your website. I would say look at everything on the website, every page, read everything, and reach out and contact you. Mm-hmm. That's one thing.
Yes, I always do a free consultation, to talk through whatever your particular family is going through and how, because every family is different, right? And how we approach it and what your goals are going to be different.
And you've got a tribe. So your set of experiences and the fact that you've put a website out there and you're reaching out and you're doing mom empowering moms and you're making yourself available to the universe, then the people who you can help can hear you, and they're going to come to you. Mm-hmm. So if you're out there looking for help, I would say definitely go to the website, read and reach out. And even if people reach out to you for one reason or another, they're not ready to change. They may not be ready to work on themselves. There may be some direction you can give them.
Absolutely.
Maybe a book or another set of experiences would get you closer to that step of realization that, you really got to start with you.
And here's what I would say. When our kids were little and I run into some kind of issue with them, not big, small, big, whatever, I always think to myself, somebody else has written a book about this. Yeah. So I'd go to Barnes & Noble and I would go to the parenting area or the self-help area or whatever area it was, and the book would find me. So I, again, encourage parents to take the time to, if you're having a challenge, don't just keep pushing through it, but take the time to educate yourself. Take the time to look for resources. They're out there.
Yeah. So, like you said, there's going to be people who are ready to make that change, people who are not ready to make that change.
That's right.
My brother said this. I was asking him when he was going through his homeless journey. I was asking him, so what message would you give somebody who's going through their journey at different places? And his comment was, I would just tell them not to give up hope.
Mm-hmm.
I think hope is very, very important.
It's interesting that you say that many years ago. So the very first time that I told you I got this wake-up call from my son, and I ended up flying literally from Texas to Wisconsin to be in this situation, I had this rock, and inscribed in it was the word hope, like, embedded in this, and that's what I presented him. When I first, when I got to where he was, I asked him to put it in his hand, and I said, Nick, without hope, you have nothing. And he has, he's kept that rock and kept that, that thought. I think hope is absolutely essential.
That is so powerful. That is so powerful.
It's weird that you mentioned that. Cause
I know. I mean, yeah, I'm at a really loss of words right now because I was going to ask you, what would you say? But you just said it, right? Hope and.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting because just in listening to your story, how you were there to help your son. I was present when my brother Tyro was deciding what he was going to do. And even to this day, when I look at helping other people, I have to check myself because Tyro will tell me that people will only change when they decide to change.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
They're not going to change because you're doing something. You may have an influence, but just, we don't want to enable behaviors.
Right.
And I have to be careful with my intention to help, whether it's with my kids or anyone else, how, I'm really not in charge. And there's a tendency that I try to,
Well, and it's asking
control.
yourself the question: is this something that my child or my friend or whatever can do for themselves that I'm doing for them?
Mm-hmm.
It's really some self-introspection about what your motivation is behind. Of course, you love them and you want to help them. However, is it really helping them? That's the question.
Yeah.
Am I really going to help this person by stepping in here, or can I just listen and hold space for them while they make the choice themselves? And that's a lot of what I do with parents too, is just allow them to come in, whether we're on the phone or in the office, and just release what needs to be released and hold space for that emotion to come out.
Well, here's the thing I want you to talk to before we wrap too, because a lot of times there's challenges, and those challenges is when the house is on fire. But I remember talking to my daughter during a time where I thought I was doing some things that were really good and supportive. And when she told me her experience at that time, it was totally different. Also, when me and Beth got divorced, we would think that we are creating a healthy situation for our kids, as healthy as possible, given that we're separating by trying to be kind and communicating, but yet we don't know what's inside their heads.
Mm-hmm.
So what would your advice be to a parent that feels as though they have great communication with their kids?
Mm-hmm.
They're doing all the things that you would advise and coach.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any level of health that cannot be exceeded. So what would you advise to those parents who feel like they're doing a good job to either meet with you or to see how they can improve the relationships they have with their kids, even though they feel like there's no need to improve?
Well, I think that it helps to
misplaced.
have just an unbiased opinion at times about things, and that doesn't mean that they might be doing everything 100%, in the best that they can with what they know, and they are practicing conscious parenting. It's not that I don't make mistakes as a parent or don't, is there such thing as, not making any mistakes in life? I mean, we're parents, we're not perfect.
Right.
So if you're doing your best to take good care of yourself and being open and communicating with your child, then what more, can there be? We have to give ourselves some grace. And maybe it's just here, if that parent were to come to me, and maybe it would be me saying, give yourself a break. You're doing a fantastic job.
To hear that.
Yeah.
But I would also say, if people go to the doctor every year. Sometimes they go to the doctor when they have problems. But even if they don't have problems, they should still go for an annual checkup.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I would say is you have these athletes. I did a workshop the other week on growth mindset. And we were talking about the elite athlete. No matter how great they are always pushing themselves to become better. So I would say no matter how great you feel you are as a parent, you should always be pushing yourself to be better. There's new information out there. You're continually learning.
Right, absolutely.
There's continuing things that you can learn about yourself, your children, because we're all evolving. And so if you're not somehow, like if you have a professional degree, you're getting continuing education. So if you're not getting some kind of continuing education on parenting, then you're getting behind the game and you don't even know it. And you don't want to wait until there's a problem and there's a fire in the house.
Right.
You want to, I would say, continually meet with somebody like a parenting coach, read books, or just
attend seminars.
Attend seminars.
I mean, there is a lot of opportunity. There's schools often put on, education nights about this, that, or the other thing, and lots of times they are speaking to like an empty auditorium because again, I think it has to do with what your priorities are as a parent, where you're going to spend your time. It has everything to do with how busy our kids' schedules are, but that's a choice too. I really feel like as parents, we've kind of gotten away from saying, like all our kids' practices and things are over the dinner hour, it seems like, or band is over the dinner hour, or, it's creeping into our Saturdays and Sundays. We have to be careful and guard our family time so that we can build these connections. You cannot build connections if you have no time with your kids. Right?
Yeah, I mean, time is precious. Like so I do these workshops. So on the third Saturday of every month, I do an event at the Highland Hills Library. So we have something coming up this weekend, and the Friday before we do a lunch and learn. On the second Saturday, we're in Houston. But then we record all of our programs and we put them on YouTube so that people can watch them either over again, or if they can't come to the event, they can experience it because, like you said, they're doing all these other things in their lives. With you and the kind of work that you do, is there anything that you can do in providing your services to people in a way that fits their schedule, that doesn't take, like, in addition to the one-on-one coaching time that you do, like where they can still get a piece of you even though they're trying to fit everything else in their busy lives?
Well, there's several videos on the website. I am working on my second book, and it's not going to be a parenting book, though. It's called Becoming Me While Raising You, A Mother's Journey to Self Through Parenting. And it's going to be really a story of my personal journey, and with the hope of also eliciting some questions along the way for the parent reading it to draw some introspective thought on their own journey.
So when is that book coming out? You're in the process of writing it, right?
I'm in the process of writing
your
it.
Your intention is to have it out when?
Fantastic intention would be to have it out by the end of the year.
Okay, cool. I like that.
To be honest with you, I'm having a little bit of trouble writing it. I think it's because there's ways that I need to grow that I haven't done yet. So I'm having a little bit of, I don't want to say writer's block, but there's certain things that I think that I need to do and grow, and the book isn't progressing as quickly as I want because I need to do those things.
Okay, so
to be brutally honest with you.
So as we're hearing that, then a lot of positive energy is going your way to work through that, so that the end result is that the book will be out there saving lives as soon as it can.
Thank you.
There. So what's on the calendar for you? What else is happening that people need to know about? Your meetup group, and what else?
Locally, Moms Empowering Moms meets in Flower Mound on Monday evening at 7:00. You can get all the details at meetup.com. I'm also co-hosting a documentary called Screenager's New Chapter. That's going to be at Movie House and Eatery in Flower Mound on Sunday, October 6th. And we'll have a press release and some marketing coming out on that probably later this week, early next week. So that is about teen well-being and the influence of screens and things. It's a fantastic documentary for parents and middle school and high school age kids to see. So bring your middle schooler, bring your high schooler. What else do I have going on? I'm drawing a blank.
Well, think about that. I'm going to give you an opportunity to say some more. So I'm going to do a commercial as well too, right? So as I said, this is the Empower Series weekend. So we've got on Friday, we're doing a lunch and learn at the Network Bar. And that's going to be from 11:30 to 1. And we have a guest coming in named Wendy Ida. So Wendy Ida is part of Wendy Ida Fitness out of Los Angeles. She has a very inspiring story. She comes out of a 13-year relationship of domestic violence out in New Jersey, was trying to escape. She was just she felt like she had no control. And she escaped after the third time to Los Angeles with her 2 children. And was still acting like she was a scared little rabbit, thinking that a van was going to come up and like take her back to New Jersey. But she started working out with a personal trainer, and she was working out just to get this guy to stop nagging her. But that was the first time that she felt some control when people were telling her that her body was changing. And so she took that to the next level. She is 67 years old right now. She does not look a day over 40, and she has broken all kind of records. And she is a life reinvention strategist, which she focuses on women, but she'll help anybody really take charge of their lives. There's an article in the Southern Dallas magazine that I wrote for the first time, so now I can say I'm published.
Yay.
So please check it out. Talks about her story. But she's really here in Dallas to pour into our community, the Empower Series community, by sharing her story and letting you know that there's no age limit to really taking control of your life. So she's an example of that. So she's going to do the Lunch and Learn on Friday, Saturday at the Highland Hills Library. Please come out. That's from 10:30 to 12. She's going to share her story and give you more details, because at the Lunch and Learn, it's only like a 30-minute conversation, but it's more networking. And then on the 24th, we're having our first fun and fitness fundraiser at 360 Fitness 360. So please come check us out. Go to our website, www.empowerseries.com. You can find out all the things that are coming up by clicking on the RSVP button. Also, if you've been to the Empower Series and you want to give us some feedback about how we've impacted your life or what you would like us to do, there's a link there that says take a survey. And I want to give a tremendous amount of appreciation to our sponsors, Comerica Bank, AE Media Group, and your generous donations, our guests today. And do you have any other closing comments? Do you remember anything else that's happening? If they can,
no, but I do have a signature statement that I want to leave you and your listeners with, and that is this: our children come through us, not for us, but for the lessons they reflect to us during their journey, in an effort to grow us up along the way.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. And this is being recorded, and it will be out there for generations to hear. So you've blessed us with your presence and your wisdom and your guidance. And please go to Kim's website to get more information and events that are coming up, as well as resources to help us all become better individuals, better human beings, and better parents and influences on our children. So thank you again.
Thank you, Clifton. My hand is gone. Oh.